Greetings, YouTube and fellow traditionalist Catholics. This is Sergio Becerra II, and welcome back to my channel. And I want to say happy Tuesday and happy feast day of St. George. So I will be uploading this video today, since it is the feast day of St. George. And today we are continuing with the Borgia Chronicles. We just started chapter 2 in the last video, and we're kicking off with some more of chapter 2. So Cardinal Alfonso Borgia is now Pope Callixtus III, and as we left off, he is already now rallying for a crusade to take back Constantinople after Constantinople had been conquered by the Ottoman Empire. So let's get back into it. We are now on page 53. And in the last video, I would read this highlighted paragraph. And then we'll resume the rest. Okay, so right here it says the new Borgia cardinals. After a long debate in consistory, the Pope created 3 cardinals. 2 were his nephews, Luis of Centi Quattro Coronati and Rodrigo of San Nicolo. And the third was a prince of Portugal, Jaime of Sant Eustachio. I'm going to pronounce that name right there. They all showed promise despite their youth. Indeed, it was said that the ages of all 3 cardinals added together still did not make enough years for one. It was clear that these men had not been made cardinals for what they could give the church, but rather for what the church could give them. And it is a mistake often made to choose an office for a man rather than find a man for the office. The creation of these cardinals was not made public immediately, and the other cardinals hoped to deceive the Pope, who they thought would die soon. But in the end, it was the Pope who deceived the cardinals, for that summer, when there was only one cardinal left in Rome, he made the creation public. All right, so he's already made cardinals, and they're his nephews. One, as I've already discussed already, the future Pope Alexander VI, Rodrigo Borgia. So let's see, you got Luis, then you got Rodrigo. It says here the third was a prince. Jamie. Okay. I always forget how you pronounce Jamie in Spanish. So let me see. Let me finish. Let me go back to this right here. It was clear that these men had not been made cardinals for what they could give the church, but rather for what the church could give them, and it was a mistake. Okay, what the church could give them. Okay, so Callixtus makes his nephews cardinals, and I'm reading right here. It's not what they could give it's not what they could get, these cardinals could give for the church, but what the church could give them. Again, we're seeing acts of nepotism because other popes like Callixtus and then later successors will engage in nepotism to give people offices and ranks within the church. So let's finish off where we left off last time. So Callixtus III is right now called for a crusade to get back Constantinople. So everything's right now going according to his plans. Late in September, sorry, let me start that again. Late in September, news reached Rome that Pedro de Ura, Pedro de Uria, far from setting sail for the Aegean. Sorry, setting sail for the Aegean to defend Christendom, had in fact joined forces with King Alfonso of Naples to launch an attack on Genoa. This treachery would lead to seriously deteriorating relations between Callixtus III and his old patron. There was more unwelcome news from Naples on 4 October when the Pope was informed by King Alfonso's ambassadors that the new alliance between the powerful states of Naples and Milan would be celebrated with the marriage of Don Alfonso, the grandson of the king, and Ippolitia, the daughter of Francesco Sforza, Duke of Milan. So it looks like the alliances between King Alfonso and the Pope were now breaking away, and now you got an alliance between King Alfonso and Francesco Sforza, the Duke of Milan. So let me read. So right here, let me read this again. In late in September, news reached Rome that Pedro de Uria, far from setting sail for the Aegean to defend Christendom, had in fact joined forces with King Alfonso of Naples to launch an attack on Genoa. So it looks like the now plans have now shifted. It seems here that it says that plans have now shifted. Now that a war could break between Naples and Genoa. So this now right now creates new alliances between the king and the duke. Okay, so next paragraph. on 17th on 17 December, in a magnificent ceremony in St. Peter's, Callixtus III appointed Cardinal Trevisian as admiral of the fleet and legate with papal authority to govern Sicily, Dalmatia, Macedonia, and Greece, as well as Cyprus, Crete, Rhodes, and other islands in the Aegean. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right. Aegean or Aegean, Aegean. I don't know. I'm having a hard time pronouncing some words here. Aegean or Aegean. I don't know what. Some islands, some islands out in the Mediterranean. Okay, so okay, so we have right here, what looks to be a late medieval painting. So we have right here is Rome. I can tell because the Castel Sant'Angelo is right here. So you got Castel Sant'Angelo right here. You can see the flag, and then you got the River Tiber. It looks like a couple of people on a boat, and then you got some people right here in this corner just sitting in the field. So here we have an old medieval painting of Rome. I don't see St. Peter's anywhere. So let's see. Okay, now it's 1456. So let us continue. With the preparations for the crusade well underway, Callixtus III now turned his attention to his nephews. Okay, so it looks like the crusade is underway. Okay, despite the alliances going on between Milan and Naples. So I must have gotten something wrong. I apologize. Turned his attentions to his nephews, of course. On 5 February, Pedro Luis Borgia, elder brother of Rodrigo, was given the prestigious post of Captain General of the Church and the governorship of the great papal fortress in Rome, Castel Sant'Angelo. So, Callixtus III makes, let me see, Pedro de Luis Borgia, that would be Rodrigo's older brother, Captain General of the Vatican and its army. And the Pope has decided to give him governorship of Castel Sant'Angelo. So he's now running things within Castel Sant'Angelo, which is not far from St. Peter's. Kind of like, I know I've seen pictures of both the Vatican and Castel Sant'Angelo. They're like several yards apart from each other. I don't know. I don't know how far. I wish I went to Rome, but I've seen pictures where it's not far, depending how many yards. Probably about a mile. Who knows? Maybe a mile or two. Honestly, I'm not sure. I wish I went to Rome. Okay, let me see. On 20 February, Callixtus III held a secret consistory in the Vatican at which he persuaded the 12 cardinals present to sign the document creating three new cardinals, his nephews, Luis Juan de Milla and Rodrigo Borgia. Okay, so Luis Juan de Milla, one of Callixtus' nephews, is 26 years old, and Rodrigo a year younger, 25 years old, and Prince Jamie of Portugal, age 43. The names were not to the names were the names were not sorry, let me read that again. The names were not to be published immediately, but in a highly unusual step, Callixtus forced the cardinals on pain of excommunication to agree that in the event of the Pope's death, Rodrigo's title was to be considered published and he was to be allowed to take part in the conclave. Okay, so on pain of excommunication, do not mention his nephews. Do not mention Rodrigo. Do not mention anything on pain of excommunication until Callixtus dies. Then you can publish the names of the cardinals that he appointed. That would be his nephews, and that Rodrigo would take part in any conclave. Now, even though Rodrigo is still young, not not fully experienced yet to be head of the church, which happens a few decades later in 1492, which we'll later get to one day in this book. So Callixtus forced the cardinals, pain of excommunication, to agree that in the event of the Pope's death, Rodrigo's title was to be considered published. Okay, so Rodrigo's name would be known one day when the Pope dies. So the names were not to be published immediately, but in a highly usual step. Okay. Don't say anything, don't publish anything till when the Pope dies, or else face excommunication. Okay. On 15 March, after Callixtus III had threatened Giorgio di Solzo, the bishop of Lausanne, with excommunication, the latter finally surrendered the keys of Castel Sant'Angelo to Pedro Luis Borgia. A week before, all Rome had been amazed when it was reported on 8 March that a Turkish prince had been baptized in San Lorenzo in Damaso. So it looks like a Turkish prince has been baptized in a church in Damaso. So it looks like um, an Ottoman prince has now converted to Catholicism because shows here that says here that all of Rome had been amazed with the reported news about a Turkish prince finally being baptized. Does not say who, but let's get to it. In April, Callixtus III issued a papal bull depriving the errant naval commander Pedro de Ura of his post. So it looks like the commander of the naval fleet has already been deprived of his post. And let's see. And authorized Cardinal Trevisian to appoint someone else in his place. Meanwhile, the Pope remained busily engaged with building and equipping the ships for the crusade. An expensive task. A year after his election, Callixtus III had spent over 70,000 ducats on the fleet. The ambitious project had taken longer than expected. Okay, so 1 year into his papacy, the Pope spent 70,000 ducats. Well, he's mostly focusing on the papal fleet, the papal navy, to prepare for the crusade, and it's taken longer for him, and it's gotten expensive. So let's see where it says here. Let's see. This ambitious project had taken longer than expected. The original date for the fleet's departure, 1 March, had been highly optimistic. The project had already been delayed by a month, but it was only at the end of April that work was nearing completion. Okay, so things have some things have been delayed, and it says by a month, and it said at the end of April of that year that everything was almost complete. So looks like Pope will finally get what he wants. On 4th May, Callixtus III requested the head of the Augustinians to order all his preachers to concentrate exclusively on preaching the crusade or risk excommunication. So now he's ordering the Augustinian monks. We need you to preach the crusade. He's ordering the head of the Augustinian monks, the abbot, no doubt, to preach the crusade to everyone or else risk excommunication. Finally, on 31st May, he formally invested Cardinal Trevisian with the legates across. Fasten on your sword, beloved son, wrote Callixtus to his legate. Keep your promise, for God will be with you, and neither money nor any other necessity will be lacking. Trevisian left Rome at the head of a fleet of 27 galleys carrying over 1,000 sailors, 5,000 soldiers, and 300 cannon, sailing down the Tiber to Ostia and then on to Naples, where he was expecting to join forces with 15 ships that King Alfonso had finally promised to provide. Looks like everything is now setting sail. Now they're off for the crusade, and that papal forces will join with King Alfonso. In the middle of June, a comet appeared, its fiery tail clearly visible in the night sky. It was feared by many as a portent of some greater disaster. Okay, so we're going to read this one highlighted paragraph right here with the picture. And it's Halley's Comet. That is what they saw in the sky. In the night sky. It was feared by many as a portent of some great disaster. So now you got a Halley's Comet flying over in the night sky and it's scaring people. So, excuse me. Need some coffee here. My throat was parched last time badly, so gotta keep my throat wet and moist. Halley's Comet causes consternation. Then there appeared for many days a fiery comet with a great hairy tail. The astrologers predicted a terrible plague, a great rise in the price of food, or another enormous disaster. And so, to avoid God's wrath, Callixtus ordered several days of public prayer in order to inflict any such calamity directly on the Turks. Let me read this again. Callixtus ordered several days of public prayer in order to inflict any such calamity directly on the Turks. Okay, so now you got some astrologer are right now making predictions about plague, the price of food, and other disasters coming. Anything and they have to, or another enormous disaster, and so to avoid God's wrath. So you got some astrologer making predictions what could happen, not and it all has to do with God's wrath. So that's why the Pope is there right now saying, pray, make sure nothing happens in Europe, make sure any um, casualties happen on the Turks. Okay, so here's the picture right here with that highlighted paragraph I just read. So that big star in the sky is supposed to be the comet. You can see clearly right there. Okay, now I'm going to read this next highlighted paragraph. The Pope berets King Alfonso. It is a pity that no Christian ships were near Ragusa because they would have given much encouragement to the Hungarians, who complained bitterly that our fleet was not yet arrived. Your ships could have frustrated the Turks, inspired the Christians in the East, and rescued Hungary from hunger. I mean, sorry, not hunger. Let me read that again. Inspired the Christians in the East and rescued Hungary from danger. Sorry, I misspoke. I said hunger. I meant Hungary, the country. Yeah, the country of Hungary from danger. But instead, you treacherously used our money to betray us. God and the Holy See will bring retribution down on you, Alfonso, King of Aragon. Aid Pope Callixtus aid Pope Callixtus because you if you do not, God will seriously punish you. And this is actually a note from the Pope to Alfonso telling him you're supposed you were supposed to keep your promise and take part in this crusade. Okay, let me read this last part again. But instead, you treacherously used our money to betray us. So the king used the papal funds for whatever cause he was doing. I think it all had to do with his alliance with Milan going to invade Genoa. But God and the Holy See will bring retribution down on you. Yeah, so now the Pope's saying God and the Pope will see retribution against the king for this betrayal. Okay. On 29 June, Callixtus III sought to galvanize Christendom further by publishing a papal bull ordering all priests to preach a sermon against the Turks, Oratio contra Paganos. He also required the bells in churches across Europe to be rung between noon and vespers in order to remind Christians to say their prayers for success. At the beginning of August, the papal fleet was still anchored off Naples, waiting for the ships that King Alfonso had promised, but now seemed reluctant to supply. The cost of the paying and supplying the men on board was mounting daily. Moreover, there were reports from Greece that the Turks had conquered Athens, and others from Hungary that the Turks were poised to invade. So you still got the papal fleet docked in Naples, still waiting on King Alfonso. So far, nothing's happened, and now you got the Turks already now invading Athens already. Athens, the capital of Greece, and others from Hungary that the Turks were poised to invade. So the Turks are already now advancing. So they conquered Athens and other places too from Hungary that the Turks were poised to invade. So uh, The Turks are right now advancing. The king's delaying things. So let's see what happens next. Callixtus III urged Cardinal Trevisian to depart and wrote a strongly worded reproof to King Alfonso. That evening, together with some of the promised Neapolitan galleys, Cardinal Trevisian finally sailed from Naples on 6 August. Oh, sorry. Cardinal Trevisian finally sailed from Naples. So it looks like the fleet is now, the papal fleet is finally now sailing gone. So let's see. On 6 August, news arrived in Rome that the Hungarians, led by John Hunyadi, had managed to defeat the Turkish armies besieging Belgrade. So you got the Hungarians finally, led by John Hunyadi. I forget. I think he's the Hungarian king or another Hungarian noble. I forget. Sorry. Had managed to defeat the Turkish armies besieging Belgrade. So now you've got a Hungarian noble finally taking on the Turks, and Rome had finally learned of this. On 24 August, Jacopo Calcaterra reported the Pope's reaction concerning the repulsing of the Turks to Francesco Sforza, Duke of Milan. Having arrived back in Rome yesterday, I went to see the Pope and found him in bed with some pain in his knee, which I took to be gout. Well, the Pope was already in his late 70s at the time, and he's already now in bed with gout, knowing he's not gonna be able to move much. His Holiness received me with much affection, even though I had not been long absent. He said again and again what a magnificent and glorious victory it was, and praised Hunyadi to the stars, saying that he was the greatest man world has the, that the world has seen for 3 centuries. He said that God had granted us this triumph in order to shame all those who had denounced the crusade and had criticized his own actions by saying he had thrown away 15,000, 20,000, even 40,000 ducats, money which past pope money which past popes had collected and safeguarded with the treasure of the church. He clearly told me that he had been accused of this by King Alfonso. So a letter by a man by the name of Jacopo Calcaterra. I don't know who he is exactly, but sends word to the Duke about what happened in Hungary with John of Hunyadi, even though the Pope had been in bed with gout. Okay, let's move on. Okay, now, okay, before we go here, um, on page 60, okay, I'm going to read this right here. Emperor Constantine offers the imperial tiara to Pope Sylvester I. This late 13th century fresco from Sante Quarto Coronati in Rome shows the Pope wearing a mitre, the headdress that symbolized the spiritual power, and receiving from the emperor the tiara, the conical hat that was the symbol of temporal imperial power, the so-called donation of Constantine. The tiara was a the tiara was an emblem of secular authority, widely used in the pre-Christian world. Interestingly, this symbol migrated east where it became a typical headdress of Hindu and Buddhist deities. Let me read this part again. Interestingly, the symbol migrated east, where it became a typical headdress of Hindu and Buddhist deities. So, So this has to do with like headdresses, in which later went into the eastern part of Asia, and the umbrella or parasol being held over the emperor, another traditional imperial symbol, would later become one of the emblems of the Buddha himself. So it has to do with head dressings here with this tiara that the emperor has given the pope. So here it is. Here's the fresco right here. So you got the emperor and Pope Sylvester I giving the imperial tiara to him. So donation of the donation of Constantine, the tiara was an emblem of secular authority widely used in the pre-Christian world. Okay, so this tiara was been used way before Christianity finally came into light, and of course, this kind of headdressing went into eastern parts of Asia for the Hindu and Buddhist deities. Okay, let us continue. With the crusade now underway, Callixtus III turned his attention to the restoration of authority in the Papal States. A few days earlier, on 21st August, he had appointed Pedro Luis Borgia as his governor in Aemilia, Assisi, Civita, Castellania, Foligno, Narni, Nepi, Nocera, Orvieto, Rite, Spoleto, Terni, and Todi. Okay, okay. A few days later, he had appointed Pedro Luis Borgia as his governor in. Okay, so it looks like one of the Pope's nephews is given governorship of some of these Italian cities, because it says here turned his attention to the restoration of authority in the Papal States. So he's putting one of his nephews in charge of some of these Italian cities in the Papal States, which is central Italy, and of course it does mention Assisi as one of them, which is where Saint Francis of Assisi is from. Okay, here we go. In, in September, Rome was hit by an outbreak of the plague. Okay, now plague hits Rome. Most of the cardinals left Rome, but Callixtus III, together with Cardinal Dom, Domenico, Capranica, remained in the city. On 17 September, the Pope seized the opportunity to publish the creation of his two nephews and the Prince of Portugal as cardinals. Okay, so now, right here, the Pope seized the opportunity to publish the creation of his two nephews and the Prince of Portugal as cardinals. Okay, so now we see that the Pope finally takes the opportunity, publishes the names of his nephews as cardinals and the Prince of Portugal. Okay, I thought the Prince of Portugal might have been a family member to the Borgias. Must have read that one part wrong in the previous pages. By 2 October, it was reported that Callixtus III was seriously ill, his condition in such that he might die at any moment. The Milanese ambassador informed his master, but the Pope recovered by the following month. Okay, Pope got ill, so now with the names of his nephews and the Portuguese prince being published, uh, so okay, let me see. Okay, that the Pope might die, but quickly recovered. Okay, so we're gonna leave off right here. on page 62. So tell me what you think so far. Comment below. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell beside it, and we'll pick up on page 62. All right. So things are getting interesting. Now we got a crusade already underway. All right. So this video will be uploaded today since it's the feast day of Saint George. All right. Take care now. Bye.